Hi, so I re-listened to the latest Rockatoxx album, A Tragic Love Story, and I wanted to revisit it because it's been a long time since I've heard it, and with the release of her new album, The World's Ending, which is, I think, in like 3 weeks or so, I wanted to give another fair shot at this old project. Now, a few things. This is my first time actually making one of these videos, so I have a lot to set up still, and I kind of wanted to keep my room dark a little bit to kind of like separate myself, but I look like shit right now, and also you're probably getting the glare from my screen on my glasses, so I'm sorry about that. I'll find some way to fix it, but for now, this is just what we're going to deal with. Next, you're going to notice me using two different cover arts to define this project, as the rollout was a bit odd with what cover art we were led to believe was going to be used, and the one that was actually used. The one I use in the thumbnail is not the final one, but the one that I think looks better, and the one that was teased for most of it. And with that all being said, let's get to my actual thoughts on the project now. And while my feelings towards it are definitely different than what they were originally, I can't say that they're all positive still. The production on the 6 songs are still great. I really like them, and there's a lot of intricate details that put together something that sounds so beautiful and really nice to listen to. Not a lot of Squadeca artists really try to go for this sound and put you in this vibe. However, Rockatoxx's vocals don't really blend well at all with the instrumentals, and it feels like they're clashing at some points by just how defined these instrumentals are, but by how weird and not really pronunciated her vocals are. A good example is the track Kana, which the first instrumental to me sounds like a bad Eminem type beat that you'd find off YouTube that doesn't really go anywhere in the actual song before it switches over to a completely new beat, which the beat is fine, but Rockatoxx's vocals sounds like they're slurring all over the track, and it doesn't really sound appealing, or it doesn't sound defined enough to be invested in what she's talking about. And that's extremely important on an album like this, because this is a concept storytelling project, and you need to be able to be understood or get a clear idea of what's going on for you to be able to follow along and engage with that story. The album kicks off with the single Picking Flowers Out of the Garden of Eden, which I think feels like the most finished and polished track on here. The doubles and the lyrics makes it feel honestly really joyous to engage in, and the hook, while not being amazing, stands out and is pretty nice. I've grown a lot more of an attachment to this song, I think just because after reading the lyrics on Genius and listening to it a few times, it kind of grew on me, and I felt like there was a lot more effort put in to the meaning behind the track and what it does for the story overall. However, I do think the flow kind of derailed and was getting a bit more sloppy as the track went on, and I think that the song could have been more clear with the purpose and point it was trying to convey. Then the album moves on to the second song being the title track of the whole project, A Tragic Love Story. And this song I used to think was my favorite, but honestly it feels like a much more half-baked version of Picking Flowers. The overall delivery is really sloppy, and the great doubles that were in Picking Flowers are now gone, and it doesn't make the track feel anywhere near as much full. And also, some parts of the verse feel almost rhyme zone-y, like there's so many syllables and rhymes that are thrown in to make it sound complex, but honestly, it just feels so bloated, and it could have got its point conveyed so much easier if it was just a lot more simple. Now, I do think the second verse is a lot better, but the first one kind of derails the song so much where it isn't even enjoyable. The hook also, while being okay, could have used those doubles again that were in Picking Flowers to make it really stand out. Now, story-wise, this song doesn't really progress the plot that much at all, but it does give more character to not only Rockatoxx, but also the love interest, and it makes it feel more specific and more personal to her. And then we hit the first break of the album, The Sound of Nothing. And this track is where I feel the project really starts to go all over the place. The Sound of Nothing is very true to its name. Nothing happens, really. There's a simple loop that plays throughout the entire thing, doesn't change at all until the end, and nothing happens. What was the point? When making a storytelling concept album, for each track, ask yourself this question. If I were to remove this song from the album, what would change? If your answer is nothing, get rid of it. That means the track is unnecessary, doesn't really progress the plot at all, and is overall just unnecessary for your project and makes it more bloated. Then we hit the previously mentioned Kana, and I've already kind of stated my thoughts about the track, but I will say I kind of wish it fit into the narrative a little bit more, because as it stands, it's a song about Rockatoxx's previous or current drug abuse, and while that's something important to speak on, it doesn't really connect to the story that well, and I have trouble seeing how it fits in. And then we get to the second break of the project, the Doomsday intermission, which, to me, it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. I wish there was more foreshadowing or something that led to this, and while there are parts of the album that it feels like it does lead to something like this happening, it almost just feels coincidental instead of re-listening to the project and thinking, oh, this related to it. It was more of just, oh, that happened, I guess. And it's such a shame because this instrumental buildup could have led to something so cool, but it just kind of falls flat. It doesn't really click. And then we get to the final song, the third break, Meet Me at the Moon. And this song infuriates me whenever I listen to it because it just feels like such a cock tease. The Morse code is so annoying. I tried to decode it. I gave up. I didn't care enough to decode it because apparently it led to clues relating to the next album, which I would only care if I enjoyed this album, which I don't. And you heard me right. The third break. This album only has 3 actual songs, and the other 3 are labeled an interlude, an intermission, and an outro, which is just another way of saying it's really not much. And it's annoying because if there were more songs like the 3 that are on here, this could have been at least a decent project, but instead we only got 3 and a half-baked other section that just doesn't give us anything. All in all, this album feels really half-baked, and I wish there was more to go with it, but unfortunately this is all we've gotten for it. And while I know that a big talking point that Rockatoxx has spoke about is that it connects well with our next album, it as a standalone project does not work well on its own. I feel like my original rating of 25 was fair, and I was thinking of reconsidering it to a 30, but when going through the back end of the project again, I think that it's just best left at a 25. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want to listen to the project, you can find it in the description, and also the album of the year link there as well, in case you want to review it. I'm not really sure what album I want to review next, but I'm sure it'll be soon, so I'll see you then.